Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, Empyre, issue number 6 of 6. We are all but finished. There's going to be some leftover stuff. We're going to get into all that good stuff in a hot moment. First, let's talk about the comic book itself. And yet, even before that, let's give credit where credit's due. So we've got Al Ewing and Dale Slott. It's Dan, definitely Dan on the story. The script is Ewing. Valerio Scheide does the art. Marty Gracia does the color art. Letters by VC's Joe Caramagna, and the covers by Jim Chung and J. David Ramos. A whole bunch of variant covers for some reason or another. Carlos Lau doing the graphic design. Boom, let's go. So one of my favorite things about this particular issue of the comic book is that there was no one way to solve the problem. It wasn't, we have to hurry up and run to the end of this hallway through all of these bad guys to push the button before the timer goes down. We have to go through the building and we have to search every nook and cranny to find the bomb and then cut the right wires, before the timer counts down. There's always blah, 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 blah. Okay, there was definitely a timer here. We didn't see a specific timer being displayed or anything, but they're like, hey, we got about 8 minutes. After 8 minutes, we're dead. Cool. Hey, guess what? The idea is that there were multiple different levels of things that people had to do. Now, did everybody really get their just due in this? No. Unfortunately, there was way too much going on. Way too much. A little bit of a spoiler here as far as what Tony Stark did. The idea of removing the iron from it seems like this is what happened. If I'm wrong, then okay, I got it wrong. I actually read it twice to try and see, was I getting it right? But they did it in between a bunch of other things. So getting everything right. Anyway, I think Iron Man basically teleported the iron out of the sun in order to teleport in the molecules of unstable molecules, which interesting concept, which would make it the densest thing in there. Not the heaviest per se, but the densest item in there, because that's what unstable molecules do. They're not stable. They will continue to survive even in very harsh conditions. Case in point, they turn invisible when Sue Storm turns invisible. They stretch around Mr. Fantastic's stretchy body. They can stretch further than he can stretch, technically. They just don't have a mind on their own. Oh my God, imagine if they made an unstable molecule golem. Now, and also the idea that they can withstand a Nova blast from the Human Torch and not show the slightest worse for wear, right? He's tired. The unstable molecule's like, we're going to do another one of those? What's up? Why'd you stop? So I kind of dig on that. That's kind of a cool idea to do that. And meanwhile, Reed Richards, who looks exactly like Tony Stark in this, except a little bit taller, he goes to Wakanda to help out by doing the thing that he does, which very weird. Very weird, but I like the idea they both essentially reversed roles. Tony's going to do something with unstable molecules. Reed is going to do something with a suit. Yeah, that was kind of fun. Also, the Infinity War, or more specifically, Endgame moment. The Endgame moment where, Avengers assemble. You got to say it really low, right? Yeah, it didn't work in here. There was a slight workage, okay, but one, I think most of us are like, yeah, we still remember when Reed Richards was a wife-beating, wife-shaming, misogynistic piece of dog crap. There are a lot of young people reading this comic book too. Case in point, people who don't realize that this is not an accurate portrayal of the Gotati at all. But hey, enough of us still remember Reed being the bad guy, always being the bad guy, but portrayed as the good guy. And yet, here he is. He's saying Avengers Assemble as though he's Captain America. No, the North remembers. The North remembers. Anyway, there was also the Human Torch and Carol Danvers having to go do their thing. And although we didn't really see a whole lot of them doing the thing, the explanation was there. There was also Wiccan, and he was actually helping out with that. And the little bit that he was doing with Hulkling and the things that Hulkling was doing with Arkell, which it was mostly talking, but there was stuff happening. It's the idea that no one person did something. good references to Black Panther. Obviously, if you've ever read the Ultimates 2 comic book line, you know that Ewing definitely knows who the Black Panther is. Big time. So I didn't expect anything less as far as the Black Panther part of the story was concerned. So it made sense, and that's really what I was looking for, a story that makes sense. But while the ending of this issue makes sense, and there's a lot of doubling down on what's going on, there were still a lot of problems with it. You needed to read the Fantastic Four comic, which I did, which I absolutely did, and it's a good thing. So, make sure that you read that's Cable, for crying out loud. I think it's issue number 22. No, issue number 23. Make sure you read issue number 23 of the Fantastic Four, because there's kind of some important stuff happening in there. That being said, if your tie-ins rely, if your main story, meaning the event itself, the event issues, all 6 of these issues, Empyre alone, rely too heavily on your side stories, whether it's ancillary or one-shots or tie-ins, well, then it detracts from your story. It's like it makes these must-reads, which means that the story isn't being told in its entirety here. Like if you wouldn't know anything about the Omniwave projector if you weren't reading the Fantastic Four, which I was, so hey, but that I think is a mistake. Your story has to be able to stand alone. The other stuff is supposed to enhance the story. Maybe give you a couple extra things, like when Captain America shows up, it's like, oh, he's got the complete forces of the Kree and Skrull Alliance, plus the humans of Earth. Boom, he's got all this together, and he steps up, and it was good moments in here, really good moments. And since I read all 3 of those issues, boom, you suddenly got, and I did the review for Captain America 3 on my Twitch, which I recorded that and uploaded it in podcast number 176, I believe it would be, live stream number 176. Boom, right there on Comic Book University. So I reviewed a bunch of extra comics there. Anyway, it was cool seeing him show up there. And I did read those books, so I know how he arranged the forces. But the idea is that story was done right. The Captain America story in here was done right, because all throughout this book, there was a constant reference. Captain America isn't here because he's doing such and such. And at the end, when you see, here's the efforts of such and such, boom, it'll make you want to read the book, but it's not a must-read that you read the Captain America book. Do you want to know how he was able to unite the forces and all the trials and tribulations he went through to do that? By all means, go read the book. They were really good books. Philip Kennedy Johnson kicked ass in those books. That being said, they're not a must-read. Fantastic Four, those 3 issues, are now technically a must-read, because all of a sudden they're springing up Omniwave projector, which, interestingly enough, goes back to the Galactic Storm comics, which were not referenced at all. Interesting choice there, right? So look, here's the thing about being a comic book fan for too long. You know how the stories actually go. And retconning stuff without an explanation, just retconning for the sake of retconning because, well, I have this story to tell and all these old stories are getting in the way of that. That is your failure as a writer. That's right. I'm saying that Al Ewing is not perfect because he's human. Nobody is, myself included. We all make mistakes. You might have noticed a mistake that I've made someplace in this video. By all means, let me know about it. But when you notice these mistakes, it hurts the story. In some regards, I really hope that this is appealing to younger readers who don't have that old story. I really hope that it is, because a precedent was set in this comic book. From this point going forward, the Kotati are not the ever-loving, peaceful characters in here, and even being the victims, it's going to be really hard to pull that victim card at any moment. Now it's like literally pulling the victim card. Now it's like, you've been oppressing me for 1,000 years, and now I'm getting my revenge and murdering you and your entire family and everyone who looks like you. It's kind of hard to get that sympathy once you've turned around and pulled something like that. You know, it's like, are you a good person or aren't you? because there are degrees and we can all have slip-ups, but this was an international war where they're going around purposely trying to destroy galaxies. I mean, they're blowing up planets and stuff like that. And much like Jim Shooter would say back in the day, if you blow up a planet, there's got to be repercussions. We all like to say that Chris Claremont was infallible. He was nowhere near infallible. And neither was Jim Shooter. But when you get a bunch of good minds together, suddenly we get good stories. Some of the best stories have come out of Phoenix destroying that Shi'ar space planet. And there's a great reason for that. Anyway, but in this now, the Kree and the Skrull have been united. Yay. Under Hulkling, which that's apparently going to stick for a while. That's actually good. That's actually good because you've got an event that actually mattered. All of this, it's weird. If they would have had an event to put Wiccan in charge of these things, not Wiccan, Hulkling in charge of these things, that would have been, in my opinion, that would have served the purposes of this better. Instead, it's like, we need the Katati to be evil in order to combine these two races. On top of that, we need to have Hulkling be in charge of these guys to make this story work. This is where the story is somehow more important than the history. You have to have that balance, man. You have to have the balance. I mean, just this is a Zen-y idea. This is a Zen Buddhist idea, which I will typically always try to propagate as much as I possibly can. You have to have balance in your life. It's okay to be angry, but don't be an angry person. It's okay to get angry, but don't be angry. It's okay to, feel joy, but don't be joy. Like, balance it. It's important. It doesn't have to be as bad as Stoicism, where everything's just bleak and move forward. No, it could be a little different. It could be a little different, where you can actually experience these things. The idea in comics that there's always got to be a bad guy. I get it. But sometimes pick your bad guys. Having the Katati actually harboring this kind of resentment and then rising up and doing what they're doing, even with them surrendering like this is that kind of thing that it's not cool when you just flip the script on it. It's just not cool. There was no build up to this happening. It just kind of happened. Maybe this could have worked if there was a build up. Again, if there was an event or something or a story where we would have seen Hulkling become the leader, that would have made more sense to me. I didn't see that. I simply didn't see that. In one or two issues of Marvel 1000 and 1001, a comic book that most people are just like, yeah, no. Plus you read it and it's 99% fluff. You can't tell what's important in there and what's just fluffy. It was just the complete wrong way of doing things. Look, the Katati could become evil, or do something like this, but this, honestly, what this feels like to me, BLM protesters who have a very worthwhile cause marching. And then, it's like, hey, we want to stop the injustices. And then I understand there's some people who are going to turn around and talk about riots and things like that. But remember, riots are the rhyme of the unheard. There's a really good Rage Against the Machine lyric there for you. They're the rhyme of the unheard. You're not going to see rich people rioting. There's not enough of them. There's not enough of a reason for them to riot. What are they going to do? Kick over a stack of paychecks? What are they honestly going to do? Poor people rioting because you're not hearing me. That is atypical all throughout human history. And every single time, without fail, we will look back in history and see the rioters were right. It's important to remember and know your history. It's important. There's a reason why riots happen. So, when you have something like the Katati suddenly becoming evil, to me it feels like BLM protesters protesting and then just stopping, and one person walks forward and says, I'm the chosen one, right? It's like, yes, you are the chosen one. We've known this was the case. And he says, rioting is not the answer. Rather, We must start sneaking into people's houses and killing everyone. That is where you can start painting with broad brushes that these guys just flip mode, became evil. Think about that. How horrible is that? Think about the idea of Native Americans living in peace and living in alcoholism and all sorts of mental stress. The idea that this was us, this was ours, and oh, wow, they're just polluting everything. And oh my God, what the hell happened? How did this happen? Imagine if they just turned around and just started murdering everybody. No. Everybody. Suddenly, history's not going to look kindly upon those people. So at this point, there's that blot. Much like other stories that Marvel has done, where we just want to ignore it. We just want to pretend that these things happened. Is this one of those stories that people are going to ignore and pretend that it didn't happen? Is it one of those stories where they're going to be constantly trying to fix, like, the sudden drop of Secret Empire? It feels like that to me. It's a discussion. I'd like to have that discussion in the comments, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, don't attack each other, though, for our individual opinions. Nobody here was attacking anybody. I'm not naming names and this guy's trash. That's not me. So don't be that person. Anyway, guys, for the most part, I enjoyed enough of this comic book to give it a pass. Just wrecking history surreptitiously because you didn't have a better idea. The story cannot supersede the greater story. The individual story cannot supersede the greater story. The story of Marvel Comics, which has just been told and it's done. And unless you're going to start rebooting things or make another Ultimate Universe, then this simply, to me, was not the way to do it. Anyway, guys, watch an ad, like the video. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.